so you know, if you listen to me, that's great, but O.J. Fargo is a good friend of mine, and he's really entertaining. He comes out as a soldier from that period, so make sure you get out and see O.J., because it will be a great thing. So just a little bit about me. I live in Scranton. I belong to the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. I belong to what's called MOLLUS, which is the military order of the Loyal Legion of the U.S. And I belong to the Army of the Southwest, which is the oldest living history reenactment group in the state of Iowa. We've been going on for 30 plus years. So when I first started, I started to train my great-great-grandfather, who was Samuel Steele Sample, who was the first lieutenant in the 5th Iowa Infantry down in Keokuk. That's where he joined up. And he was wounded in the little battle of Iuka, Mississippi. When he got better, they detailed him to the Signal Corps. And so what he did was they would wave big flags and stuff and send what they call a wigwam. And this is a representation of the uniform that he would have worn. It's I'm a staff officer, so on my emblema's, they're black, whereas if you're in the infantry, they'd be blue, if you're in the artillery, they'd be red, and in the cavalry, they'd be yellow. That's how you kind of tell the difference between what they were doing at that time. These are made out of 100% wool. And in the South, after the Battle of Bull Run, when everybody was wearing all kinds of different things and stuff. I mean, Iowa went to first Iowa went down to Missouri. They had a gray shell jacket with red piping. Well, today, they would say Confederate artillery. They were infantry. And then each town had their own militia. And they were all their own design, and they'd go to Europe and they would pick up the French, which is where the kepi is. They got that from the French officers. They had the Zouaves, which were Algerian soldiers, which were the fiercest in the country. So they had big bloomer pants, and they had little vests, and they had fezzes and stuff. So just kind of whatever they came up with. After Bull Run was such a fiasco, the Union Army decided they had to be organized, so we knew who they were. They had to all be dressed the same, so we could tell who they were. The Confederacy didn't have the ability to do that, so they could be whatever they could get. These are really good, but in the wintertime, wool, most of you probably know about wool, it's one of the best insulators against cold. In the rain, if it rained, these coats don't have a seam. That's so the water would just run and drip off, but wouldn't pile up. The only time it got wet is if you sat down and you pushed the water through the wool. So, in the summertime, in the South, the Union Army had to wear these in the wintertime and everything else. And I'm in church, and I'm nice and warm. So if you don't mind, I'm going to get comfortable. So, but my ancestors, I had two of them from Iowa. My great-great was, like I said, from the 5th. My great-great-great-uncle was in the 7th Iowa Infantry. Worked his way up to adjutant of the Army, and his medallion is up on the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, James Lane Sample. And my other ancestors, I got 8 of them from Illinois, and I've got 1 Confederate. So if you look into your history, you never know what's going to show up. Sometimes it's surprising. So, to be a member of some organizations, you have to have an ancestor that was involved in it. And that's what the Sons of Union Veterans is like. And this is the brochure, and anybody that wants one can come up here and pick this up. There's a little bit about Iowa history. It also tells you about what it takes to be a member of the Sons of the Union Veterans of the Civil War. This started after the war. They had the Grand Army of the Republic, which is one of the first service organizations that we had. They had some other ones that the soldiers got together from the Revolutionary War. They had a soldiers group. So every war, the soldiers had their own thing. During the 1860s, after the war, the Union Army came up with this, and then when sons, and we're working on the sons, and the sons. So we're still looking for active members that have ancestors that serve. And so this is the thing that tells you, well, I don't know if you've heard it, they say that Iowa had the most soldiers per capita. Well, that could be true, because we had 76,534 soldiers that went off to war. Now, what happened was, and that would give us that designation, but this also incorporated the ones that went and then became veterans. And those are the ones that re-enlisted and fought. So now you can drop that number down a couple of thousand. So that's why everybody talks about that per capita thing, but it's just something to think about still. So, but before that, the day that Lincoln died, April 15, 1865, so 3 soldiers got together, 3 officers got together in Pennsylvania, and they're going to go, what are we going to do now? We don't know what anybody in the Union's going to do. We don't know what the South is going to do. We don't know what the government's going to do. But we have to protect this country and keep our way of life. So they organized what's called the MOLLUS, which is the military order of the Loyal Legion of the U.S. And they got together. Most of the top generals at that time signed on with MOLLUS. They had 4 future presidents who became a member of MOLLUS, and they all said that no matter what happens, we are here to protect the Union and to keep it safe. And to be a member of MOLLUS, you have to have a Union officer who served in the Civil War. Well, mine was my great-great-grandfather was the first lieutenant. My great-great-great-uncle was a lieutenant colonel. So I had that connection. And so I joined MOLLUS. And as our recognition, they have medals that they award us. This first star is for MOLLUS. Now MOLLUS, I have my own ID number, which is on the back of the badge. So if I have my grandkids want to know more about my history and I'm not there to tell them, they can go to MOLLUS, look up that number, and they will have my history. If anybody here has a member that was in the Civil War, then they can check out MOLLUS. And MOLLUS has a book that they put out. We have a historical journey. And in it, they have a lot of names with the numbers of that officer. So you can look up that officer, check his number out, and learn what their history was. And the Sons of Union Veterans, they also have a medal that we put out, and it tells us whether we're a past camp commander or and that kind of stuff and things. So and that's just to honor our Civil War veterans, and that's all veterans, whether officers or privates or whatever. So, and then they also honor my military service as a Vietnam veteran. So now, a little bit about what happened and what went on. When, just imagine, I mean, I was 19 when I did my thing, but a lot of 18-year-olds was the draft age. A lot of people signed up, went to war, and what did they know about war? Most of them hadn't done the farm, they hadn't left the businesses or whatever it is. They were 18, 19 years old and up. So what was on their mind? And they were thinking, okay, well, it's going to be fun. It's only going to be 3 months. That's all that was the initial enlistment work, which was 3 months, but that's how long it was going to take. But Governor Kirkwood said, no, it's going to take longer than that. So he had a 3-year enlistment. So that's what, initially right off, what are we going to do? Well, from here, they would march off in a group, Davenport, which is where they had a training center, or, you know, there was some trains that could transport and stuff, but that's how they got from here. Even if they went out west, they marched from Des Moines to the middle of Nebraska to fight the Indians. And this is the kind of life that they had. You can imagine like from here to the Des Moines, Keokuk area. But I have kind of a couple list here. When the soldiers from this area, from Rippey, there was 2 regiments. You had the 10th Iowa Volunteer Infantry. You had the 39th Iowa Volunteer Infantry. And so they got together. So some of them times will have the brothers' names here. They'll have the father and the son's name here, and what they went through. And so if you're 18 years old, you don't know anything about what's out there in the world. You've never been off your farm or out of the country anyway. So you go into this place, all of a sudden now you got thousands and thousands of men together. And life there was not all fun and everything else, because you get 20,000 men together without a woman. We're not very healthy living guys. And so then you start getting diseases and things. So you go through this list, and you can look at other lists. A lot of soldiers who maybe 6 months into the army got a disease and passed away. And it was a lot of the young guys, the young kids, that were passing away. And so once they kind of got their training and they started moving out and doing things, they had to do everything that mom used to do for them. They had to take turns in doing their meals. They had to take turns in cleaning up and sanitary, whatever they had, and that kind of thing stuff. So they're all kind of learning that, so trying to learn what it was like to be a soldier. Now, this figure, you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you have a quick meal, you go out and you march and you drill all day long. You get a break for lunch, you go back out in the afternoon and you march and you drill all day long. Not a whole lot of those things out there for entertainment. So you have, you know, bands, and they would have singers, sometimes they would learn to play cards, and so whatever they could come up with. This was kind of the life of the soldier back then. But just think, if they knew that all this was going to happen, do you think that the enlistment age was 18? And the officer had to have 30, well, he wanted like 100 soldiers that he could have accompany. So he would take whoever he could, and then you have a young kid who's 16 years old who comes up, and the captain knows who he is, and probably really knows how old he is and stuff. Only asks the question a certain way. So I know you're 16 years old and you really, really want to join, and I really, really need you in my company. But you're too young. But I'm going to ask you a question. First thing you're going to do, though, is because it's a religious time. You don't want to lie, because you go to church, you don't want your parents to find out about it. So you take a piece of paper and you write the number 18 on it. You take that little piece of paper, you put it in your shoe, and you put your shoe back on. So now the officer's going to sit there, he wants to enlist you, and he goes, how old are you? Now he's not going to say 16 because he knows he can't get in. And he's not going to ask, when's your birthday, because he knows math, so he can figure out when you're too young. So he goes, are you over 18?
Oh.
Well, and he would say yes. And that's all they needed to have you sign the paper and sign up. And so now, at 16 years old, you're in. Sometimes they would have younger kids. Well, let's make him a drummer. Let's do something. One of the most notable children was a kid who was 8 or 9. His name was John Clem. And he became a drummer, and he was so well liked that his company, it was an Illinois company, they came up with a uniform for him. They would take some money from there, $13 a month, which is what they got if the Confederates didn't steal the money or the pay to get he sent away someplace else or something, so they signed him up. And then at the Battle of Shiloh, he was doing his drumming, and he ran out there, and they were getting overrun. He picked up a pistol and shot a Confederate officer. Well, he was so brave that General Grant promoted him to sergeant on the spot. And then he spent the rest of his life in the Army and retired as a one-star general. The youngest Medal of Honor winner was also a drummer. He was, and his company were moving forward. They were getting chased back and everybody was running, and it wasn't all organized, and they were throwing their rifles and whatever they had away. Well, he carried his drum all the way back to the company area. And because he was the only one that returned with the equipment that he had, they awarded him the Medal of Honor. So this is just kind of the stuff that they were going through and learning about. And then you have, oh my goodness, they're shooting at us. Well, what are they doing when they're shooting at us? I mean, you're sitting there, like say, you're a company, say this is a company here. And all of a sudden, you're marching towards 10,000 guys on the other side.